The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog Fantasy. We're back at it with the research show for the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson. AT&T was told to take a hike. The CJ Cup has been sponsoring random events from South Korea to South Carolina to Vegas over the past few years, but now they're settled and linked themselves up with Byron Nelson. This is the first full tournament that we haven't seen without Scotty Scheffler since Bhatia won at Valero, but it's been a run. I mean, Scheffler's been taking not all of our money. I mean, some people have been betting on Scheffler and winning, doing well by doing the smartest thing possible. The rest of us trying to get sneaky, losing all our money in a lot of this stuff. But Valero didn't have him. But before that, it would have been, I believe, actually, Valspar didn't have him in it either when Malnati won. Unfortunately, no one had Malnati that week. But it's weird to see a tournament in Texas because Scheffler usually does play this, but with an elevated signature event next week at Quail Hollow and then the PGA Championship, you need to get some rest in when you're, I mean, I don't know if they've had the kid or not yet, but it's probably coming very soon. If it was quote close to happening at the Masters, which it wasn't at all, then now would actually be the time when it would be close for that happening. So we'll see if he ends up playing next week too. And it seems like most of the biggest names have actually skipped McKinney, Texas this week at TPC Craig Ranch, aka the Bunny Ranch, for this leg of everything. Like it's a nice way to get away for a lot of the players. And even us playing betting, DraftKings, doing content, like no one gives a shit about the Zurich. This we found out. I mean, my metrics tell me the same thing every year, although that's usually when I go on vacation. So just to see like the numbers of the shows, I mean, I had very little interest. That probably filtered through into the shows. I do like talking about golf. I like betting on golf. It's not like I wasn't going to bet on it or play DraftKings for it, but team event, no one really cares. No stats to look at. Shot Tracker was an absolute mess because they're testing whatever new shot tracker that they're testing out now. This was the test week for the President's Cup, which is coming up in September. Let me know, by the way, if you're going to be in Montreal for the President's Cup, because we got a crew going. If we have enough people who say they have interest, maybe we'll do like a meet and greet at a local bar or something like that one of the days after the golf has been done. But it's like me, Jeff, Cust, Kenny, Tambo. I think Byron's going to come up now. I think Cam is going to come. So we're going to have like a legit crew, a Mayo media presence in Montreal for the President's Cup. But for this tournament, for CJ Cup, the Byron Nelson, not a lot of firepower in the field. Like Spieth probably, I mean, Zalatoris is the best player who is playing. I don't know if he'll be number one on the betting odds. When we get to guess the odds, we'll figure that out. But although Spieth has been playing like trash, he'll probably end up being the favorite. He skipped it last year. He's playing in it this year. So that's where we're at. Let's take a look. TPC Craig Ranch is at par 71, 7,414 yards. Bent grass green Zoysia fairways, which means super spongy, and they're pretty wide. So if you just want to go bombs away, that tends to be a path. When we take a look at Fantasy National here in a second, you're going to see it's one of the only courses I've ever seen that has almost a flat distribution between driving, approach, and putting. I've never seen anything like it come up on the bar graph that populates Fantasy National. It's crazy. 83 bunkers on the course, 13 holes with water in play, although this is one of the easiest courses on the PGA Tour, so just keep it out of the water and you will be fine. We take a look at the par threes. The average distance is 204 yards. 3 of the 8 holes that actually play over par on this course are the par threes. All 3 of those measure over 215 yards. The par threes are where this course is actually going to show its teeth. 6 of the top 7 finishers that last year gained strokes on the field. On par threes, there's 10 par fours. The average distance, there's 11 par fours. The average distance is 442 yards. There are some pretty lengthy ones, though. The top 3 holes in terms of bogey rate were all par fours, 1, 13, and 16. But the 2 short ones, 6 and 14, carry a birdie or better rate of over 40%. 6 is like almost drivable, but not quite. Most people just kind of hit it up to the collar of the green and then chip on and just tap in for birdie. That's not a it's not a good hole. Speaking of number 16, the bogey rate on 16, the difficult hole, was more than 3 times the birdie rate. You have 17 other holes to try to make up ground. Just take your medicine on 16 and pray to God you can get out of there with a par. Because, yeah, the bogey rate is 24.8%, number 16. And this is what is, fondly known as the KH Lee Open. This is only the fourth year that the PGA Tour has played at TPC Craig Ranch. So we had Jason Day win a year ago at minus 23. Then you had KH Lee minus 26, KH Lee at minus 25. It's a Tom Weisakoff design. So the most notable other design that he has is TPC Scottsdale. And KH Lee has played really well in Phoenix over the years, so Phoenix leaderboard is most definitely one to look at. Probably a bit further down from the top because, good players play at TPC Scottsdale, where they're not so much playing here. So you might have to look like who finished inside the top 30. We'll go back and look at that the farther we go on into the show, but it was just what I wanted to bring up. If we take a look at the KH Lee profile a little bit, after winning it in consecutive seasons, how did he do it in those years? It was ball striking, 61% against the field, 3-putt avoidance, 60%, par 4 scoring, 57%, fairways gained, 56.9%, and he was just able to fill everything up tee to green. Honestly, we were going to build the model and we're going to really dissect this course. I don't want to throw too many people off the scent here and try to get fancy brain with it all. You want to look at ball striking, and you do want to have a great tee to green game. If we just sort by tee to green, that's probably going to be the best way to figure out at least who has been doing well enough coming in to give them a solid baseline. Now, obviously, if we're going to try to pick a winner, there's a hot putter that needs to be an element to that. It's going to be very difficult to lose strokes on the green at a tournament where the winner could be minus 30 and actually have a chance to win. Even if you take a look at Scheffler's numbers from last year, he finished inside the top 10, but it was during that streak where he could only break even at best with the flat stick, and that just wasn't good enough to win. It'd be great. Imagine if you put Scheffler in this field, he'd be like minus 110. And again, if he did just putt to field average, he wouldn't win because it's a tournament where you just got to unless he hit everything to 2 feet every single time, which is within the range of outcomes for Scottie Scheffler at this point. I'm just kind of jazzed that he's not in the field, that we get to lose money and feel like we actually have a chance before Scottie hits a shot rather than what's been going on lately. It's been 3 years, like I mentioned, for TPC Craig Ranch, and there is a verdict. This is an easy course. It's not the easiest, but it's almost the easiest course on tour. Just birdies and eagles everywhere. In its debut in 2021, Craig Ranch gave up the most birdies of any course that year, along with the 4th most eagles. It was also the course with the 4th highest scrambling rate as well. Even if you miss greens, par will be safe 66% of the time. It all makes sense statistically. Players hit more fairways here, higher than average, more greens in regulation, drive the ball farther, and 3-putt less. It's just a very conducive course to generating as many birdies as possible. Rowlett Creek runs throughout the course, and will test the field to either lay up or try to clear the hazards on about half the holes. The field's probably going to clear them on most of them, but since it didn't provide too much difficulty from the fairway, quote, layup, should be probably stricken from the record here because guys are just going to go for it every single time. And with the way that the holes are laid out, you can expect a larger than normal amount of approach shots from 175 and beyond, but specifically 200 and beyond. 3 of the par 5s measure between 545 and 570 yards, so they're all gettable. And 3 of the par 3s are at least 216 yards. There are 6 holes immediately right there, and throwing the long par 4 along with it, where you're gonna encounter approach shots from that range. In 3 years, over 50% of the approach shots have come from 175 and above. And I believe it's around 40%. When we take a look at Fantasy National, we can deep dive that a little bit farther. Beyond that, there are the 6 par 4s over 450 yards, 2 other ones under 360. 14 is drivable by most of the field, but it comes with a little bit of risk. It's a slight right to left drive, guarded by bunkers to the right with a massive water hazard to the left. Even if you put it in the water, it's a lot like 17 at Scottsdale. You can still get up and down for par. It's not that big of a deal, so why not go for it? Expect a lot of the field to bail out right. Greenside bunkers, forced to get it up and down for birdie. The field only makes eagle 1.5% of the time on number 16, but the birdie rate is 43% on a par 4. Number 6 is 361 yards, but no hazard area. And some of the bigger hitters do go for it from the tee box, but it's just a bit too long, as I mentioned. At 341 yards to the front of the green, bunkers on each side of the putting surface. It's slightly right to left, just like number 14. You can get a favorable capable bounce and sneak a drive in between the bunkers and have it roll up, but it's really not that big of a deal. Even if you end up in the bunkers, they're not overly challenging from that perspective. So who are guys that are going to make a ton of birdies? That's what we want to find out this week. I suppose that's what we're trying to look for every single week, but when you're going to breach minus 20 on the scorecard, it's a different type of vibe. It's like a Corn Ferry event in a weird way. Weirdly enough, they used to play the Corn Ferry here. 2019, Taylor Montgomery was the winner of this event. Nick Hardy came in 5th place. Chandler Phillips also finished inside the top 10 this year. This is what I was talking about with the bar graph for the course. That amongst the top 10 finishers, let's see here. We got 0.77 off the tee per round, 0.76 on approach, and then 0.79 putting, and almost half a stroke per round around the greens. Like, it is a full tee to green test. And if we do look at the top 5, it's very similar. Approach does outweigh off the tee just a little bit more. Then you take a look at the winners, and like it's KH Lee, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to hit all my approaches close. Don't worry about it. So you really do want to lean on the ball striking aspect. Like, if you're not hitting your approaches well, you got like no chance here. Even like the putting, like, wasn't astronomically good. It's not like you needed a spike putting week. You needed a good putting week. So amongst the 3 winners that we've had here, KH Lee twice and Jason Day, they're averaging 0.7 strokes per round. So that's what, almost 3 per tournament. Like, that's not outrageous. There's a lot of guys that can gain 3 strokes putting in a single week. The par 3s are going to be tough. That's just kind of collectively known, with 3 of the 8 most difficult holes on the course. And then it's flat. Otherwise, even when we go back up and we take a look at some of these eagle rates, 5.2 on number 9, 3.1 on number 5, 1.9 on 14, which is that short par 4, and then only 1% of the time on number 18. So 2 of the par 5s are entirely gettable for eagle to almost all of the field, and then you have number 14, which is kind of the same way. But look at some of these birdie rates. There are 5 holes on this course with a birdie or better rate of basically 40% or higher. You're not going to find that very often. And when it comes to the challenging holes, as I mentioned, number 16, a 25% bogey rate, 1.7% double rate, or worse. Number 12, 20% bogey rate. Number 4, 17.7% bogey rate. So there's a couple of holes where you just kind of have to wash your hands of it, say, hey, I can take par, make the sensible shot, then just be as aggressive as possible with almost everything else. Let's take a look back at some of the other years. Once again, fantasynational.com/Mayo. Get you 20% off. And as you can see right here on the screen, you can get access to get yourself into the live beta. It was no good this week, as none of the shot trackers were pretty good. But if you are a member, you can get your tips on Apple, on iOS, or on Android, and just have it populate. Everyone who's used it so far has said it's the best, and I concur. It's the only leaderboard app that I use at this point. You want to see guys on your screen in real time seeing what they do. This is the app for you. You don't have to click into individual names to find anything out. Nothing of that nature. You can just have it populated on your screen at all times. So Jason Day wins a year ago. Day had been playing well all year, and it finally culminated in this. If Siwoo, let me guess, Siwoo couldn't hit approaches last year, couldn't putt last year, something stupid with Siwoo. He came in second. He probably chipped in like 80 times. I feel like I remember him chipping in a whole bunch of times. Byron, no, that's Byron Nelson. Yeah, that's exactly what he did. He just really couldn't drive all that well, which is strange for him with the amount of fairways that he hits. I guess because the fairways are so wide and he does lack distance, that he was penalized versus the field for that. But when you gain almost 5 strokes around the green, you really can't complain about it too much. But he came in second. CT Pan was 4th, having a good week at Zurich right now with his partner, Marty Dew, Vince Norman, big-time driver, Ryan Palmer, Adam Scott, Yaga Bombs, Kevin Tway. Tway's interesting. So I didn't expect to see his name up here. I saw him and Smelly Kelly Craft, rising up the leaderboard at the Zurich. I was like, oh my God, I bet these guys every year, and totally forgot they were in this stupid tournament. But it's interesting to see him pop there, because I believe he was in the final group at Corrales a few weeks ago. Yeah, he ended up coming 3rd at Corrales. At Puerto Rico, he was all right. He hasn't been playing much, obviously, but he is a former PGA Tour winner. Not to say that he'll ever do that again, but it's interesting to see that this is a course that has actually treated him well in the past. Don't look at 2019 or 2018. That's the old Byron Nelson course when they played at that like dumpster outside of Dallas the hell was the name? Trinity Forest, with the Zoysia greens and Zoysia fairways everywhere. They're bent grass greens at this course this time around. Ben Ann, T14, if he can make enough putts, it's like a perfect course for him. Gim Reaper was 19th last year. It says T12 in 2019. He actually had which is, again, at Trinity Forest, but he had a top 10 here, or at least a top 15 when they played on the KFT, I believe in 2018 for him. It could have been 2017. Patton Kazire used to just always play well in Texas. You can use the Texas filter on Fantasy National to check that out as well. Hoagie, I don't know if dude's broken, but he broke himself on the last hole at Heritage on the Monday restart. And then him and Mav ended up missing the cut as a team at the Zurich. KH Lee obviously played pretty well. So if we take a look, this will give us a 5-year run of it. But Spieth, T9, T2 in both of his appearances, has done very well. Ryan Palmer, a Texas guy, has been top 10 each of the past 2 years. CT Pan, as I mentioned, came in 4th. I think this was his first or second start back from a wrist injury after taking a significant amount of time off. So maybe keep him on the back of your minds as well. Piercy, Kang, Sung Kang, good for him. Wouldn't take Sung Kang this week. Alex Noren has top 25 finishes in both of his appearances, so feel free to go waste money on Alex Noren again. I might even join you in wasting money on Alex Noren, because I bet you he's going to rate out pretty well this week. Who else has done well here? Nate Lashley, top 25s each of the past 2 years. Gim was top 20. Tom Kim, T17, T34. James Hahn, they're already a T9 here at one point as well. So nothing crazy in terms of what we see just from the collective leaderboard. We take a look at the strokes gained from last year. You see, it was just ball striking from Jason Day. 3.6 off the tee, 6.4 on approach. That was good enough. He led all players tee to green. Scheffler was second and gained 0.1 strokes putting. That's how you come in 5th and not 1st. He just gains like 2 strokes on the green. He probably ends up winning this tournament. Byung-Hun An, Ryan Palmer, Siwoo Kim, Sam Stevens plays well at courses over 7,400 yards tee to green, so not surprising to see him up there. Last year, KH Lee just bled strokes around the green. His ball striking was amazing again. So that's 3 years in a row with the Byron Nelson for KH Lee. How's KH Lee even playing at this point? Not well. Played well at Honda and Valspar. Oh, and I said that I was going to look at Phoenix as well, so we'll dig into that here in a second. But he's had some good off-the-tee performances. The approach play has been very spotty. But if we take a look at Byron Nelson, it's been basically the same story ever since they moved to Craig Ranch, except for last year when he lost 7 strokes putting and lost a stroke and a half around the greens. That was really the only difference. That's a huge difference. That's a difference between T50 and first place. But if the ball striking is going to continue to be that good, let's check out his lead-in form. What was it last year coming in? So we have, where's T50 on the docket, 2023. Why can't I find it? There we go. So he's been playing all right coming in, better than he's been playing this year, but not great by any margin. He was making cuts, but it's not like he was absolutely lighting it up on his best finish coming in was a T8 at Wells Fargo. They flopped those this year, but other than that, that's kind of it. He was pretty decent at the Masters, but the year before that coming in, a lot like it is this year, actually, just terrible across the board. Then he got it kind of going at Quail Hollow, then boom, spikes of victory at the Craig Ranch. In the year before that, was playing a little bit better, but again, not great form coming in any time at Byron Nelson, but the ball striking continues to be there. I want to know what his number is going to be at Open. If we get, I don't know, there's a chance that it could be 100-1 plus. That probably won't be the case based on the just poor strength of field that we have in McKinney and the fact that he's a 2-time winner in the 3 years that it's been here, that they probably will give him benefit of the doubt in the market that he'll probably end up opening at 60 rather than 125 and getting bet down to 80. But if it is above 60, if it's 80 or above, I'll probably bet it and just be something about this course. KH Lee loves it. Why not go for it? Check out the leaderboard from Phoenix, see if we see some names that are in this tournament. I don't know if Chuck Hoffman's playing or not. Is Chuck Hoffman playing? Hoffmania. Oh, yeah, Hoffmania running wild in the field this week, too. So maybe take a look at him. I have no idea how he has played at this course over the years. Probably not very good, considering he can barely get into events at this point. But we can take a look at Byron Nelson. Missed the cut each of the last 2 years. The driving was very poor. The chipping was even worse. The putting was bad. Both years he's played at this course, he's gained on approach, but that has been it. He has been cut twice, but he does seem to be a little bit better marginally this time around, but the one place where he did play well was obviously in Phoenix. Mav McNeely. Adam Scott is actually a player who finished inside the top 10 here last year, in the field this week as well. Novak. Oh, Novak Nation. Another reason to bet on Novak. Gim played pretty well. We know that Cage Lee has played well. He had a runner-up finish in Phoenix at one point of his career. Davis Thompson, there's Siwoo Kim again, Adam Shank, Keith Mitchell, and Tom Hoagie, who are, if you sort by approach, I assume they just come out to be number one. Justin Suh, Jake Knapp. I feel like Knapp rallied. Knapp made the cut at the Masters. I think, how do you do at Heritage? Very poorly. Terrible driving at the Heritage. Interesting. Couldn't chip to save his life either. But this actually seems like it might be a pretty good course for him. Only because it's probably not going to be like he did in Mexico where the ball striking was off the charts, but something like he did in, I don't know, at the Farmers. He didn't drive the ball very well in Phoenix, but when he drives the ball well, he drives it really well. I guess when he drives it poorly, he drives it incredibly poorly. But the irons have not spiked like they have earlier on in the year, but they've still been pretty good. That maybe it's a time to go back in on Jake Knapp, maybe not as an outright, but potentially as a DraftKings play, depending on the price when he comes in. Let's take a look at 2022. Scotty, Cantlay, Brooks. Yeah, these guys aren't playing. There's Noren. Noren pops up with the top 10. Kazire, we said Kazire came in 30. It popped a top 10 there 2 years ago. Keith Mitchell, man, this would actually track really well for Keith Mitchell to get his win, him or Tom Hoagie, to be perfectly honest with you, because we saw it with Jason Day last year, that this was sort of the culmination of the great year that Jason Day had put together. He finally comes through and gets his win at this event. And then we saw it a little bit later on in the year with Ricky Fowler, where he was having a really good year, and then boom, he finally spikes the win in Detroit. I don't know if Keith Mitchell is having the best year of guys who haven't won, but the results have been very consistent. But more importantly, the ball striking has been wildly consistent. The putter is up and down. It's terrible to marginally good. And marginally good could be enough this week if you come with the right amount of ball striking prowess. He has been 26th and 76th the 2 years they've been here. 1 year, he had the approach going really bad. But as you can just see on the screen, his tee to green, his ball striking, his driving has been awesome so far this year. So he has to be in consideration as much as you might not love having to do it. It's dicey, put it that way, with Keith Mitchell. It's just, he's probably going to chip or putt you out of a tournament. Just like, Tom Hoagie is going to chip you out of a tournament at some point and rub it in your face, and then you feel like a moron. But that's just the way that it goes when you're dealing with these guys with super high odds. Yeah, no one else really sticks out to me who's in the field this week. So it's like Noren, Mitchell. Noren and Mitchell are really the two that kind of pop up more than you think. Jake Knapp, I guess, would be the other one. So let's jump over and try to figure out what we want to do with the modeling. Good news, I've already done it. So I actually modified my one from last year before we started, me putting in all the hard work. Strokes gained 2. No, that is the mixed condition model, I believe. Let's see. What do I have strokes gained in? I want to go to TPC Craig Ranch. And let's really shorten it here. Let's go we'll go 12 rounds. We might even shorten it to 8 rounds just to see who comes in with the best sort of tee to green game. So I have tee to green at 6%. I'm going to up that to 11, take away on off the tee and approach since they're being double counted as a part of tee to green, 16 and 19%. Par 4 is 450 to 500 yards, 11%. Par 4 is 0 to 350 yards, 5%. Putting 5 to 10 feet, 10 to 15 feet. Par 3 is 200 to 225 yards. Eagles, 5. Opportunities gained, 9. And proximity from 200 yards is 5%. We'll update that and let it tell us why Keith Mitchell's the best player. No, it's actually Kevin Yu. Boop, boop, boop. Cage Lee, Kevin Yu, let's go. Has Kevin Yu ever played at this place before? Decent run at Zurich as well. How's he been doing? Poorly. Not great, Bob. But, again, we just saw, he's never played in the Byron Nelson. So it's first timer seeing the course. So Kevin Yu pops out as number 1 in the very short-term modeling. So it's Kevin Yu, Mark Hubba Hubbard, Siwoo, Ryan Moore, Mav, top 5, Smelly Kelly Craft, Nate Lashley, who does have the 2 top 25s the past 2 years here, Lonto, Keith Mitchell, Novak. That's the top 10. Then you got Ben Martin, Shank. Shank was one of the names that came up in the Phoenix crossover. Dietrich, 4chan, Damon, Custy Pete, Peter Quest. Vegas, Hoagie, Noren, Bezadenhout, and Norlander, who he and List were actually making a pretty good team here. I wonder if Rico Hui can actually make some noise this time around. He came 33rd in Corrales. I just assumed he missed the cut. 14th, like the ball striking the ball striking was better. The driving is great. If we can just get him to up his approach game a little bit, again, him not cashing the top 10 at Valero was painful. He had a very, very poor round 4. He's more of a showdown guy than anything, but he's just always one of those names to keep on in the back of your mind as bombs, depending on what the price is. Like if he's 100 to 1, it's a bad bet. If he's 350 to 1, well, then it's just monopoly money at that point. You're just betting $10 on to do whatever. Hopefully he ends up with a placement. If we shrink this down to past 8 rounds, Kevin Yu remains at the top, but 4 Chan Kim ends up popping up to number 2. Mitchell Kraft, Lonto. I bet Lonto at Corrales, and he was 1 over after the first round, and that just basically stunted everything he could do. He did rally for a T36 at Corrales. You can see the ball striking, not so bad, right? Seamus Power is another one who we saw him get it going early at Heritage, and he's actually had some success at this course. No high-end success, but you can see the approach play has been really good. His driving is terrible, but he chips, he putts. If he can figure it out enough like he did at the Valspar, maybe another guy who's a former winner on the PGA Tour. He's played this event 3 times at this course and finished inside the top 20 every single time. One year, it was just all chipping and putting, so the chipping is great here. We've seen the ball striking be good enough, and that was last year. He gained almost 2 strokes off the tee. So if we kind of rewind back into time and see Byron Nelson coming in, he gained off the tee at Wells Fargo, and before that, he hadn't gained since Phoenix. But he did gain in Phoenix. He's still, he's been off the injury for a while now, but if he can actually figure out how to drive the ball like he was doing a little bit towards the beginning of the season before he went into this rut off the tee, he's going to be a very interesting name from what I would assume is back of the pack, but in a field this week, you probably can't assume much, can you? Spieth is still up there. Ben Martin retains that over time. Let's see Tee to Green coming in, because I did want to look at that. Alex Noren is first. Siwoo, Chan Kim. Maybe it's just a week to bet all Asian dudes. That could be we can bet Kevin Yu, Siwoo, Chan Kim, CT Pan, and we're off to the races. Try to find a winner of all those guys. Jaeger, CT Pan, Ryan Moore, Keith Mitchell, Lashley, Kelly Craft, Mark Hubbard, Lonto again. Feels like a week where, I don't know, if you do have a favorite at the top, it's just all of the favorites in this field just aren't playing great golf coming in. I guess Zal is. I don't even really remember what happened to him this week. He was 44th at the Heritage, 9th at the Masters. If it's a long, hard course, then I like him. I don't know how I really feel about Zalatoris and Birdie Fest. He's just not shown a proclivity to do all that well in them. The lower the winning score, the higher the winning score, the better it does seem like Will Zalatoris finishes on the score or on the leaderboard. So you take Zal out, and he's probably the best player in this field. And Spieth has just been off the rails. So you don't really want to bet Spieth when he comes in 12 to 1 or something like that. And they're probably the 2 highest on the odds boards. Who do you feel good about? Siwoo is probably the guy that you feel the best about this week, which is crazy to think about coming in. And I'm not going to put much stock into the Zurich. If someone has it's one of those things where if someone has a bad week, you can write it off to, well, they had a bad week. It's a stupid Zurich. And when we think about Kevin Yu, if he comes inside the top 5, it's oh yeah, Kevin Yu finished top 5, riding in on the hot wave. So I'm personally going to try not to put too much effort into what is happening at the Zurich. Andrew Novak still, 17th tee to green over that time. Kevin Yu, Lonto, as I mentioned, Ben Martin, Aaron Rye, having a good Zurich, Aaron Rye. The Smother Man, KH Lee, 23rd tee to green over the past 8 rounds coming in. So he's not in the most awful tee to green form that we can think of. Mac Hughes is up here. Sung Jae is in this field, and he's just been terrible, although he did turn around his fortunes a little bit, a mini bit, at the RBC Heritage. He came in 3rd, but a lot of that was chipping. The approach play is bad. The approach play has been bad. When you have a sea of red, it's tough to part it when your name's not Moses and your name is Sung Jae. So I don't know if that's going to if this course is going to get him off the schneid. And do you really want to find that out when you know that his odds are going to come in being 20 to 1 because he's an actual name in this field? So it's tough to really parse out what we want to do this week because of the strength of field. So let's take a look at a longer sample of size here. Let's go 75 rounds. to see if there's anything baseline that we want to look at in terms of, hey, who has the skills that we want here that maybe is not playing great at the moment. So Zal actually rates out the best past 75. So does Berger. But again, past 75 is still taking numbers from 2022 before his injury. So let's throw him out for a second. Jeff and I will talk about Berger on Monday, I'm sure. We got Zal, Siwoo, Rai, Mitchell, Hoagie, Gim, just all the losers we've been losing money on. When one of these guys got to win this week, we spin the wheel of losers. Pick them all. Ben Ann, Kevin Yu, Jaeger. Jaeger already got his win. Vegas, Bezadenhout, Adam Scott, Luke List. If Luke List could putt, I feel like it could be a decent week for him. Same as Colley, but Colley legit cannot putt, so that's a problem. Tom Kim, baseline is 20th. Hubbard, Ryan Moore. So it's a lot of the same names. You got Novak and Shank just outside the top 20. Shez Reavie is there. Sungjae, man. Sungjae, even over the past 75, is only 28th in these rankings. That is not good. Noren is actually a lot lower long-term than he is short-term, just to kind of show how much better he has been recently. Tita Green over that time. Siwoo, Berger, Zal, Gim, Jaeger, Rai, Ann, Colley, Spieth, Kevin Yu, Grayson Sigg. Talk about a guy who can't putt. Grayson Sigg is the man of that. I bet him 2 weeks in a row. I was like, what am I doing here? Dude, legit can't putt. So it's a real problem when you're not an elite ball striker. If you're an elite ball striker, you can get away with it. When you're fucking Grayson Sigg, nah, not a chance. Terrible proximity from 152 as well. But the ones I wanted to look at longer term mainly were Eagles, par threes, opportunities gained, and the short par fours, because you don't encounter too many of them. So guys that are great on short par fours on the PGA Tour over the past 75 rounds, you got Ramey, Siwoo, Tom Kim, Zach Blair, Scott Piercy, S.H. Kim, Daniel Berger, Ben Griffin, Kuchar, who does have a top 10 at this course, Day, Hubbard, Colley, Bezadenhout, Hostler, Noren, Pearson, Cootie, letting us down this week. Those long par threes, Carson Young, Keith Mitchell, Davis Thompson, Kim, Justin Lauer, Bud Colley, James Hahn, Tom Kim. A few Tom Kims and Jason Day shout-outs when you take a look at the longer form, but you don't see their names anywhere when you take a look at the short. And then the best players over 200-yard proximity in the field over the past 75. List, Hoffman, Hoagie, Thorbjorn, Tommy Two Gloves, Tommy Gainey. All right. Smotherman, Tom Kim. So the long-term numbers love Tom Kim, is what we're finding out. Short-term numbers do not love Tom Kim so much. He was, he was 18th at the Heritage. Couldn't drive to save a lick, which is weird for a guy that usually just his driving went in the tank, and he usually just kind of hits every single fairway. But if the approach is on the rebound, maybe a look, maybe. I say it's just like Minwoo. Minwoo's in this field. You don't see him anywhere. He's having a bad year. But bombs away course, that's good. Maybe because of the shorter approaches, he can get it going a little bit better. I mean, he gained 6 strokes on approach at the Classic, and that's a tournament where Cagely has also done very well in his career. He played this last year, I believe. Yeah, he did. But he also played it in 2016 on the KFT and came inside the top 20, but he was bad on approach here last year, missing the cut. He's just bad on approach most weeks until he's great on approach. But the thing that was always bailing him out is his putting was off the charts good, especially last season. He just has not been able to translate that through. So you know that he's going to gain off the tee. If he makes the cut, one of those 4 rounds is going to be a 63. It's just what he does in those other rounds ends up becoming the problem. So that's really all I wanted to look at this week for the Byron Nelson. We ease ourselves back in. We got some big boy events coming up over the next 8 weeks or so. 2 major championships, 2 signature events, Canadian Open. It's all jam-packed in here. So we just want to test out the waters a little bit, getting acclimated back to the research show. It's the first one I've done since the Masters. I was away for the Heritage. No chance I was going to do one for the Zurich. So don't want to take up too much of your time with this, but to give you a lay of the land of where we're at in one of these weaker field tournaments, which generally speaking, I think can be pretty good. Okay, it's time to guess the odds for the CJ Cup Byron Nelson at TPC Craig Ranch in McKinney, Texas. I'm stalling here because I got no clue of what's going to happen. I think that Spieth is going to be the favorite. I'll say that Spieth is... I mean, if you put Spieth at 12-1, would anyone actually bet Spieth at 12-1? Probably not, so he'll probably fall if he opens at 12-1. I think he's going to open at 12-1. Then you'll have Zalatoris, I'll say is 14. Then Siwoo Kim at 22-1. Tom Kim 25, Jason Day 25, Minwoo 28, Adam Scott 28, Ben Ann 28, Alex Noren 33. Yee. That's what we're looking at for this tournament. This is the tournament that we are playing this week. It's funny because they used to hold this the week before the PGA Championship. So you would go Quail Hollow, this course, PGA Championship. So it actually did attract a lot of higher end players because a lot of people like to play the week before a major championship. And that is just not the case right now. Dudes finished up at the Heritage for a guaranteed payday, a nice payday. Then they went on vacation for 2 weeks. So they didn't want to have a hit and giggle at the Zurich. But that's what we're doing for Guess the Odds this time around. Hopefully I'm wrong and these guys are more down the board to give you a chance to actually bet them. But if Siwoo was 25, I'd hit that instantly. I just don't think we're gonna get enough generosity from the sports books this week in order to do that. So that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Once again, Underdog Fantasy. So here's the thing: you support the show by signing up for Underdog Fantasy. That really does mean a lot to us. Use code Mayo. Deposit $100, boom, you get a free $100 matched directly into your account. We've been cleaning up on UFL. I've been tweeting that out in correlation with runthesims.com and using their numbers. So that's been very profitable. And golf has been super profitable. Basically, from the Masters, there was nothing for Zurich, but Masters and Heritage, pretty good. I've been putting out plays in the newsletter for Thursday as well. So sub to the free newsletter to get those plays, and I'll probably tweet them out at the same time. Smash the like while you're here. Sub to the show. Share it with some friends. If they're into golf or betting on golf as well, we can always use the word of mouth. Goes a long way into helping us. Just like signing up for Underdog Fantasy, right? Absolutely. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!